many times in your ordinary life have you done something so devastating that the forces of darkness had to stop their complete operations to process what just happened? Not once per decade. Not in a moment of deep spiritual crisis. Not during sacred ritual or prolonged fasting. Exactly 9 days ago. In a 4-minute conversation that seemed awkward and uncomfortable to you. Because in that mundane moment you didn't even register as significant. You executed something that only 4 other living humans have managed to do in the last 1,000 years. You completely annihilated, without possibility of regeneration, a demon that had been operating in this dimension since before the pyramids. And when that millennial entity disintegrated because of words you said almost without thinking, when hell detected that one of its oldest agents had just been permanently erased from existence, the devil himself cried. Not from sadness, from powerless rage mixed with something he had never felt. Forced respect toward an adversary who doesn't even know they're fighting. Subscribe to this channel immediately and activate the notification bell, because what I'm about to reveal to you about how an apparently insignificant action of yours executed one of the most ancient forces of evil is going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about the real power you carry without knowing it. And stay until the absolute end, because I'm going to show you exactly what you did that functioned as a lethal weapon against darkness. Why that act activated a mourning protocol in hell that had never been used before. And what is the real identity you just confirmed through spiritual force that kills without even trying to kill. Write 777 in the comments if something changed radically in your life approximately a week ago, and you need to understand what the hell really happened in the invisible dimensions. Now listen to me with brutal attention, because this is going to sound like madness until the pieces fit together. 9 days ago, you had a conversation. Maybe it was with that person who always drains your energy. Maybe it was that uncomfortable encounter you tried to avoid but couldn't. Maybe it was that phone call that lasted exactly 4 minutes but left you exhausted as if you had run a marathon. During that conversation, you said something. It wasn't planned. You didn't rehearse beforehand. The words simply came out of your mouth with a firmness that even surprised you. And in the exact moment those words crossed the space between your mouth and the other person's ears, something invisible that had been attached to that person's energy field for decades simply disintegrated. Like a vampire exposed to sunlight. Like shadow reached by light so intense it leaves no trace. Like ice touched by nuclear fire. The entity that had been feeding off that person for years, manipulating their decisions, amplifying their fears, keeping them prisoner in destructive patterns, ceased to exist. It wasn't wounded, it wasn't weakened, it didn't flee to regenerate later. It was completely annihilated from existence. And you know what's most disturbing? You continued with your day as if nothing had happened. Maybe you even thought the conversation was awkward or uncomfortable. Maybe you regretted being so direct. Maybe you didn't even remember exactly what you said the next day. Meanwhile, in the shadowy dimensions, an emergency protocol had just been activated that hadn't been used since the year 1347. Permanent Fall Protocol. It's the alert system that activates when an entity of darkness is not just defeated or expelled, but completely erased from existence. No dimensional backup, no possibility of return, no way to be replaced. When that protocol activated because of what you said in that 4-minute conversation, all ranks of hell were notified simultaneously. From minor demons to princes of darkness, everyone received the same devastating message. Entity Caliban. 347 was permanently eliminated. Responsible agent, human without conscious training. Method used, words charged with unidentified lethal frequency. Agent threat level, unknown. Do you understand the gravity of this? Hell has classification systems for dangerous humans. Trained exorcists, prayer warriors who fast for weeks. Saints with decades of spiritual practice, they're all cataloged and monitored. But you weren't on any list. You were a common civilian. And suddenly you eliminated an agent that had survived thousands of exorcism attempts, hundreds of spiritual warriors, decades of prayers directed specifically against it. You killed it with a 4-minute conversation you didn't even remember well the next day. Now let me explain who that entity you eliminated really was, because this is going to give you goosebumps. Caliban 347 wasn't a common demon of basic temptation. It was a specialist in chronic hopelessness. Its specific function was to attach itself to people with elevated potential and keep them in a permanent state of almost making it, but never completely. Always close to success, but never reaching it. always with enough hope to keep trying but never with enough results to consolidate victory. It's refined psychological torture over years, decades, entire lives wasted in cycles of hope and failure. And that entity was an absolute master at that type of slow destruction. It had been operating in this dimension since the year 892, 1,133 years of experience destroying human potential. It had completely ruined approximately 4,700 lives, partially contributed to the destruction of 22,000 others. It survived the Inquisition, passed unscathed through the Renaissance, grew stronger during the World Wars, operated with total impunity because it had perfected the art of being invisible while slowly destroying. And you annihilated it without even knowing it existed. Do you know what specific words you used that functioned as a lethal weapon? They weren't religious words. You didn't quote Bible verses. You didn't do a liberation prayer. You said something devastatingly simple, something that probably seemed obvious or even silly to you. But those words carried a frequency that entity couldn't process without disintegrating. You told that person something along the lines of, "Stop sabotaging yourself. You know exactly what you need to do." Or maybe it was, "Nobody is stopping you except yourself." Or possibly, "This thing you call bad luck is just the consequence of your own choices." Simple words, direct truth, no drama, no mysticism, just brutal clarity delivered with calm firmness. And for an entity that had been operating for over 1,000 years through confusion, victimization, and elaborate excuses, that simple clarity functioned like nuclear acid on its energetic structure. Because do you know what fuel keeps that type of entity alive? The victim's belief that it's not my fault and I can't do anything. As long as the person genuinely believes they're trapped by external forces, the demon has somewhere to attach. But when someone hears truth so clear it can't be rationalized, when clarity penetrates so deep that all excuses become obviously false, the demon loses the only territory where it can exist. And if whoever delivers that truth does so without aggression but with unshakable authority, without need to convince but with absolute certainty, the frequency of those words becomes pure poison for entities of confusion. You weren't trying to do an exorcism. You were probably just fed up with seeing that person wasting potential with excuses they didn't even fully believe themselves. So you said the direct truth with the tired firmness of someone who no longer has patience for mental games. And without knowing it, without preparing, without any conscious spiritual intention, you delivered exactly the lethal frequency that entity couldn't survive. Now comes the part that's going to make you question everything. Exactly 37 minutes after that entity was annihilated, the devil personally accessed the records of what had just happened. He didn't send assistance. He didn't delegate investigation. He himself reviewed the complete file, watched replay of the conversation, analyzed the exact words you used, studied your tone of voice, examined your body language, and after reviewing everything 3 times, he did something he had never done before in all the documented history of spiritual warfare. He cried. It wasn't tears of sadness for losing an agent. Demons are replaceable to him. It wasn't tears of fear of your power. He still doesn't consider you a personal threat. It was tears of powerless rage mixed with something his distorted ego refuses to openly admit, but can't internally deny. Forced respect. Because what the devil hates most isn't being attacked by trained spiritual warriors. He expects that. He can counterattack that. That's within the war parameters he understands. What destroys him emotionally is being defeated by people who don't even know they're fighting. By common humans who simply live with integrity so natural, it becomes a lethal weapon without intention of being a weapon. Because that reveals something his ego can't process. That genuine goodness is more powerful than strategic evil. That simple truth defeats elaborate lies. That an integral person operating unconsciously is more lethal than armies of demons operating with centuries of experience. And when he saw that you, without any special training, without even fully believing in spiritual dimensions, without intention of making war, completely annihilated one of his most experienced agents simply by being authentic and direct. The colossal ego he's maintained for millennia fractured for 3 seconds. And in those 3 seconds of crack in the armor of infinite pride, something that had never before crossed his face appeared. Tears. Not many. Just 2. 1 from each eye. They lasted less than 5 seconds before he rebuilt the mask of absolute control. But they existed. And they were registered by celestial hierarchies as evidence of something angels considered theoretically possible. but had never witnessed. The devil experiencing genuine emotional powerlessness. For those who want to deepen into this knowledge, there's exclusive material in the description and pinned comment. Now I need you to understand something crucial about why your specific action caused such an extreme reaction. It wasn't just that you killed a demon. Holy people do that regularly through prayer and fasting. Trained exorcists do it as a profession. What made your case unique were three combined factors that had never appeared together before. First, you killed it without knowing. It wasn't a conscious victory where you celebrate afterwards. It was accidental elimination where you didn't even register that something significant had occurred. Like someone who steps on an ant while walking, thinking about the shopping list. That unconsciousness is what most disturbs the forces of darkness, because it means your power doesn't depend on rituals or preparation. It's always active, always lethal, simply operating in the background of your common life. Second, you used a weapon hell has no cataloged defense for. It wasn't structured prayer they can block. It wasn't ritual they can interfere with. It was authenticity so pure, delivered with firmness so natural it pierced through all barriers, as if they didn't exist. Hell has countermeasures for almost everything, except for genuine goodness expressed without drama. That's like kryptonite for which they didn't develop an antidote because they bet humans would never manage to maintain pure authenticity under pressure. And third, the entity you eliminated was considered untouchable. 1,133 years of experience. 4,700 lives destroyed. It had survived elimination attempts from some of the most powerful spiritual warriors in history, and you erased it from existence with a 4-minute conversation that seemed awkward to you. That specific combination created a situation hell had never faced. Lethal threat that can't be tracked, can't be predicted, and can't be neutralized because the carrier doesn't even know they possess it. It's like discovering the enemy has a nuclear weapon, but they think they only have a lighter. You can't negotiate, you can't threaten, you can't prepare defense, because the carrier is going to use the lighter casually without dimensioning they're launching nuclear bombs. When the devil finished analyzing the complete implications of your case, when he understood you're the type of threat that can't be neutralized with conventional strategies because you yourself don't know you're a threat, the tears he shed weren't just for losing an agent. They were for understanding something that terrified him at levels his pride refuses to admit. If one human can do this without training and without intention, how many others are operating with the same power without knowing it? And if they start consciously discovering what they can do, the war he thought he was winning could completely reverse in one generation. Those two tears were anticipatory mourning for an empire seeing its first real crack in 6,000 years of dominance. But now you need to know something that's going to completely change your understanding of who you really are. That 4-minute conversation wasn't coincidence. That casual encounter with that person wasn't an accident. That moment where you said exactly the right words with the right tone at perfect timing was celestial coordination using your free will as vehicle. Let me explain how this works without violating your freedom of choice. God didn't control you like a puppet, didn't put words in your mouth, didn't manipulate the situation. What he did was infinitely more sophisticated. Orchestrated circumstances where your authentic nature could express itself without interference. Placed that person in your path exactly when their attached demon was weak for other reasons. Coordinated the timing so you'd be in mental state where your patience for falsehoods was at zero. Aligned energy so your genuine frustration with others' mediocrity would express itself with brutal clarity, but without cruelty. And then simply let you be yourself. Authentic, direct, without filters of social convenience. Your real nature did the rest. Because here's the secret the devil cried understanding. You don't need spiritual training to be lethal against darkness. Your authentic essence is already the perfect weapon. It just needs to be expressed without fear of discomfort, without need to be nice when clarity is what's necessary, without softening truths for convenience. When you're brutally honest with genuine compassion, when you deliver direct truth without ego but with absolute firmness, when you say what needs to be said even though it's uncomfortable, you become a portal of frequency that darkness can't survive. It's not what you say specifically. It's the vibration of unshakable authenticity behind the words. And you operated at that perfect frequency without even trying. You were simply being real in a moment where falsehood would have been easier. That's what makes your case special. You didn't develop spiritual power through practice. You simply allowed your real essence to express itself without contamination from ego or fear. And that pure expression of your authentic nature turned out to be exactly the frequency that annihilates millennial demons. Now the devil faces a dilemma his complete strategy hadn't considered: how to fight people who are lethal precisely because they're not trying to fight, how to defend against attacks that aren't even perceived as attacks by who executes them. He has no answer. And that's what made him cry. But here comes the twist that's going to explode your mind. While the devil cried for losing an agent and discovering a type of threat he can't neutralize, God was observing your post-conversation reaction. Because what you did after eliminating that demon without knowing revealed something about your character that activated divine protocol reserved for fewer than 500 people currently alive on the planet. Do you remember how you felt after that conversation? Probably uncomfortable, maybe even guilty for being so direct, possibly worried you'd been too harsh. You spent the rest of the day questioning yourself whether you should have been softer, whether your words were helpful or just hurtful, whether you had the right to be so brutally honest with someone. That critical self-reflection, that genuine concern of having possibly hurt instead of helped, that constant questioning of your own motivations, was exactly the evidence God needed to confirm something he suspected about you. You're not just powerful. You're powerful with genuine humility. And that combination is so rare, so precious, so strategically valuable for celestial operations that it activates special classification, verified unconscious warrior. It's a category that exists in celestial records but is rarely applied because it requires an almost impossible combination of qualities. Lethal power against darkness combined with humility that prevents that power from corrupting the carrier. Most people with significant spiritual power eventually develop spiritual ego. They become aware of their strength and start operating from superiority. They use power as a tool for control or validation, but you eliminated a millennial demon, and your first reaction was worrying you'd been too harsh in a common conversation. That genuine humility after devastating victory is what qualifies you for a level of operations most spiritual warriors never access. Because God can't give unlimited power to someone who's going to corrupt with it, but he can unleash complete arsenal in the hands of someone who isn't even going to recognize they possess it. You're exactly that type of carrier. And when God confirmed that through your post-conversation reaction, he convened the archangels for strategy meeting about how to maximize your effectiveness without contaminating your humility with knowledge that could inflate your ego. Michael suggested immediate complete revelation. Let them know what they did so they can consciously replicate. But Gabriel counter-argued, if they know completely how powerful they are, they might start operating from spiritual ego instead of pure authenticity. The power diminishes. Raphael proposed middle ground. Gradual revelation. Enough clues so they understand there's more at stake than they see, but without specificity that inflates ego. And Uriel closed with observation that defined the strategy. Their greatest strength is they're not trying to be strong. Let's keep them operating from that powerful unconsciousness as long as possible. God agreed. And defined specific protocol for your case. You would receive enough revelation to understand your actions have significant spiritual weight, but without specific details that make you change natural behavior for calculated strategy. This video is part of that controlled revelation. Now you know you killed a demon, but you don't know exactly how to consciously replicate the process. And that's the precise intention. Because if you knew exactly how to do it, you'd start trying to do it. And the attempt contaminates the authenticity that makes the process work. Your maximum power exists precisely in not trying to use power, simply being authentic without calculation. And while the devil cries for not being able to defend against that type of attack, God smiles because he finally has an army of warriors who are lethal precisely for not knowing themselves warriors. Now let me reveal something about what's coming. That person you had the 4-minute conversation with has already changed, probably in ways that aren't yet externally obvious. But the demon that kept them in cycles of self-sabotage no longer exists. They have real opportunity for transformation now. Clear path that was previously blocked by millennial entity. And if they choose to use that opportunity, if they finally decide to take complete responsibility and act with integrity, their transformation is going to be so dramatic, other people will notice. And when they're asked what changed when they want to know what they did differently, they'll probably mention that uncomfortable conversation they had with you 9 days ago. Someone told me something I needed to hear. It was hard, but it was truth. And something in me awakened. They won't know that what awakened was freedom from millennial demonic influence. They'll just know that after that conversation, something fundamental changed internally. And as more people witness their transformation, as your name is mentioned as catalyst for real change, your spiritual reputation in invisible dimensions is going to grow exponentially. Hell is going to start tracking you, not as active threat yet, but as anomaly that needs to be understood before becoming bigger problem. They're going to study your life pattern, analyze your conversations, try to identify what makes your words so lethal when similar words said by others don't have the same effect, and they won't find satisfactory answer. Because what makes you lethal isn't technique they can decode. It's authenticity they can't replicate or neutralize. Meanwhile, heaven is going to start positioning you strategically. More casual encounters with people who have attached demons. More spontaneous conversations where your honest words are going to function as spiritual scalpel that cuts millennial bindings. And as your count of unconscious demonic eliminations grows, as more entities of darkness are annihilated because of your simple authenticity, expressed in perfectly orchestrated moments, your classification in celestial records is going to escalate. Verified unconscious warrior is initial level. There are 5 superior levels, and each comes with amplified spiritual authority and more sophisticated celestial coordination. You're on path to becoming one of God's most effective agents in this generation. And the devastating irony for forces of darkness is that your maximum effectiveness depends precisely on you not fully realizing what you are. You're a nuclear weapon that thinks it's a flashlight, and that mistaken perception of yourself is exactly what makes you unstoppable. So, chosen one, now you know partial truth about what you did 9 days ago. You killed a demon without knowing, and the impact of that elimination was so devastating, so impossible to process within conventional spiritual warfare parameters, that it made the devil himself cry for the first time in 6,000 years. But the complete truth is even more extraordinary. It wasn't an isolated event. It was first visible confirmation of what you'd already been doing on smaller scale for years. How many honest conversations you've had that freed people from bindings without either of you knowing liberation was occurring. How many times your simple authenticity functioned as involuntary exorcism. How many minor entities were evicted because of your refusal to participate in social falsehoods. This case was simply the first where the entity was powerful enough that its elimination activated alerts in hell. But there were others, dozens of others, and there will be many more. Because now that verified unconscious warrior protocol was activated in your celestial file, divine orchestrations are going to intensify. More strategic encounters, more crucial conversations, more moments where your authenticity is going to function as lethal weapon you don't even know you're using. And as your count of unconscious victories grows, as more demons are eliminated by your simple habit of being brutally honest with genuine compassion, the devil's crying is going to become more frequent. Because each time he cries, he admits something his ego resists accepting, that he's losing war against enemies who don't even know they're fighting. And there's no more humiliating defeat than that. If this revelation activated something deep you always felt but never managed to articulate, if you finally understand why honest conversations you have seem to have disproportionate weight to apparently simple content, you recognize you're not common person having common chats. You're lethal frequency walking in human form, eliminating darkness simply by being authentic and world addicted to falsehoods. For those who made it this far and want to completely deepen into this celestial knowledge about how to amplify your natural authenticity to levels where each word carries spiritual weight that transforms realities, there exists specific material that costs less than a pizza and comes with complete audiobook and 5-minute meditation guide as special bonus. If you feel you deserve to consciously understand the power you already operate unconsciously, access is available in the link of the description and pinned comment of this video. If you recognize your authenticity killed a demon and you're ready to discover how many others you've already eliminated without knowing, write 777 in the comments to amplify that lethal truth frequency. Subscribe to this channel and activate all notifications to receive more revelations about the unconscious warrior you really are. Share this video with someone who also